Roman rulers who didn't treat the Jewish citizens very well. Another reason might simply be that he was greedy. The opposite of betrayal is loyalty. This means supporting, sticking by, and standing up for those who love us and put their trust in us. We protect and care for them. We will not turn our backs on them or leave them in times of trouble. So why did Judas betray Jesus? The Bible doesn't explicitly say, but the scriptures imply Satan had an evil influence over him and he was greedy for money. It's also possible he was trying to bring about God's kingdom sooner. Let's remember that trust is precious and we should be loyal to those we love, especially Jesus. Thank you for liking and subscribing.
I'm personally not convinced that Judas wanted to bring in God's kingdom at all. I think he was certainly greedy. I think he was a thief. I think we know that pretty early on in John's Gospel. But interesting discussion on betrayal and the opposite of betrayal, which is that lovely and very important word for us as Christians, loyalty. Loyalty. Okay, we're going to sing our first hymn, which is "O Jesus, full of grace and truth." Let's stand and sing chapter 13. We're going to look at this betrayal. Go back a little bit, go back to verse 18 to remind us. Remember the foot washing. John 13, verse 18. I am not speaking of all of you. I know whom I have chosen. But the scripture will be fulfilled. He who ate my bread has lifted his heel against me. I am telling you this now before it takes place, that when it does take place, you may believe that I am he. Truly, truly, I say to you, whoever receives the one I send receives me, and whoever receives me receives the one who sent me. After saying these things, Jesus was troubled in his spirit and testified, truly, truly, I say to you, one of you will betray me. The disciples looked at one another, uncertain of whom he spoke. One of his disciples, whom Jesus loved, was reclining at the table at Jesus' side. So Simon Peter mentioned to him to ask Jesus of whom he was speaking. So that disciple, leaning back against Jesus, said to him, Lord, who is it? Jesus answered, it is he to whom I will give this morsel of bread when I have dipped it. So when he had dipped the morsel, he gave it to Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot. Then, after he had taken the morsel, Satan entered into him. Jesus said to him, what you are going to do, do quickly. Now no one at the table knew why he said this to him. Some thought that because Judas had the money bag, Jesus was telling him, buy what we need for the feast, or that he should give something to the poor. So after receiving the morsel of bread, he immediately went out, and it was night. Let's pray. Lord, there's so much in this passage that disturbs us. We can worry about people in our own lives. We can worry about people we think might be betrayers. But Lord, let us also rest in the knowledge that you know all things. Nothing surprises you. Nothing rocks you beyond what you can cope with. That you have the power to deal with any problem, even when we can't. Lord, each of us will face problems this week that we can't solve. Please help us, prompt us by your Holy Spirit to come to you first and not to try and deal with that problem ourselves. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
There's two things we're going to look at this morning. Firstly, the betrayal, and then secondly, that Jesus knows. Betrayal is a word, we can go by the English dictionary, it says, the action of betraying one's country, a group, or a person, violating a person's trust. So betrayal essentially is treachery. And betrayal hurts. It always hurts. And it's really interesting that none of the disciples know that it's Judas. They just spent 3 years with the guy. 3 years is a long time to get to know somebody. We're going to look at that tonight. How can we have a close walk with Jesus? Well, you have to spend time to get to know somebody and to walk closely with them. And let's remember what the disciples were like. They were always trying to get one up on another, weren't they? So they would have been watching each other very, very closely. Anytime one of them tripped up, whoa, they were exposing it. Because they wanted to be greater than the other. They wanted to be closer to Jesus. They wanted to be like John, the disciple that Jesus loved, who was sat next to him at the table. They wanted that position. All of them. So they're closely watching each other, and there was nothing about Judas that made them suspicious. That's frightening. He was good. He was good at covering up his sin. And I think that's what makes betrayal so painful, because we feel like fools, don't we, when we're betrayed? Am I that gullible? Is my discernment that off that I just never knew? This person was close to me, and I just didn't pick it up, didn't have a clue. It hurts. When we do have suspicions about somebody, when we've clocked someone and we're a bit, I'm open to the idea that they could betray me. There's not that complete trust there. It still hurts when they do betray us, but we were prepared for it. We kind of had our eye on the ball, we'd already prepared in our minds and our hearts, we had our suspicions, so when it came about we were like, well, I kind of expected that. It still hurts, but I saw it coming. But when we don't see it coming, that's when it's hard. That's when times like when a husband dotes on his wife, he absolutely adores her, and then he finds out she's been having numerous affairs behind his back. Or the parent who is so self-sacrificing, just devotes their life to their child, goes without so many things that the child can have, and the child grows up and just throws it back in the parent's face and is living this secret life, hating the parent. I watched a horrible documentary. I couldn't watch it to the end. It was Piers Morgan interviewing a girl called Erin Caffey. And Erin was brought up in a Christian home. Very, very committed Christian parents. She had 2 younger brothers. And she sang in church and all the rest of it, and she turned 16 and she met this boy who was 19. And the parents were a bit concerned about this boy, so they went online and saw that he was intimate with several different girls and women, drinking, suspected drugs, and so they told Erin, this is not the kind of boy that we want you to spend time with. We don't want him to be your boyfriend. 2 days later, that boy murdered the entire family. Other than the father, he tried to shoot him and failed. And it turned out that Erin was behind the whole plot. This sweet-looking, angelic singing, Bible-knowing 16-year-old. Yet, can you imagine that treachery? There's a recording of the father being told that Erin was behind it as he lay in a hospital bed recovering, and his heart just breaks. The policeman, obviously his heart was breaking as well, telling this man this news. Unbelievable treachery, unbelievable betrayal. After all they'd done for their daughter, throw back in their face. And this is the mistake that we often make with evil and with treachery. You look at the artwork of Judas over the centuries, and it depicts this kind of really evil, angry, smug-looking character. That's not the picture of evil that the Bible portrays. Real evil is what happens when we don't trust in Jesus. But real evil can look sweet, handsome, polite, beautiful. It finds its home just as comfortably as it does anywhere else in the polite and the beautiful and handsome. I think all of the disciples were aware that there was the potential for them to be the betrayer themselves. They knew that there was evil within each and every one of them. That's why they asked the question in Matthew 26:22, Lord, is it I? Is it me? Am I the one who's going to betray you? Will I end up denying you when things get tough? Will I fall in love with someone or something else? Will I continue to call myself a follower of Jesus but live a secret life of sin? Each of them knew that there was that potential hidden inside. But I think we have to remember that Judas, although he was with Jesus, he was never a genuine follower of Jesus. He was there in person, but he was never there in spirit. He was never truly part of God's family. And that's important for us to remember, otherwise we might be tempted to think that Judas was saved, he became a Christian, and then he he walked away from that faith. He was never a Christian. He just stopped pretending to be a Christian. That's what happens from this moment of betrayal. And as we've journeyed through John, we've kind of seen that important doctrine. Sometimes it's called perseverance of the saints, or it's more commonly known as once saved, always saved. And that's a truth that the Bible speaks of. But John has made this quite clear as he's gone through. So cast your mind back to John chapter 6, verse 39. Jesus said, I shall lose none of those he has given me, but raise them up at the last day. So Jesus is saying it's the Father who draws people to Jesus. The Father who gives that gift of faith poured out by the Holy Spirit. And when people are drawn to Jesus, when we profess faith in him and they belong to Jesus, they're part of God's family, you're in. You will lose none of those. We could walk away, we would, but God doesn't allow us to. And in John 10, verse 27, Jesus said, my sheep listen to my voice. I know them, and they follow me. I give them eternal life, and they shall never perish. No one will snatch them out of my hand. My Father, who has given them to me, is greater than all. No one can snatch them out of my Father's hand. So Jesus is saying, once you're mine, you're mine. I've got you, the Father's got you. And then you read Ephesians, it talks about being sealed by the Spirit. So Jesus has got us, the Father's got us, the Spirit has sealed us. We're not going anywhere once we're genuinely in God's family. Just because somebody says they want to be a follower of Jesus, just because somebody comes to church, doesn't necessarily mean they're in God's family. And this is the scary thing. Calling on the name of the Lord is enough. Believing is all that God requires. Turning from sin, turning to him, that's the requirement. But do we truly know whose confession is real? The answer is no, we don't. By their fruits they'll be known, if they have love for one another. But Judas betrayed all those things. We never truly know. And that leads us to our second point. Jesus knows. He knows. Back in verse 10 of John 13, it says, those who have had a bath need only to wash their feet. Their whole body is clean. And you are clean, though not every one of you. For he knew who was going to betray him, and that was why he said, not everyone was clean. Jesus knew. We often have a bit of a whinge about this, don't we? That we don't know what the future holds, and we want to know. If only I knew God's plan for me, then I could put all my effort and energy into that thing, and I'd stop wasting time trying to open doors that God has closed off. I just want to know. I want to know how long I'm going to live. I want to know what job I should do. I want to know who I should marry. I want to know all these different bits of information. But God will only reveal what we need to know when we need to know it. Jesus, when asked about when he will return to this earth to put everything right and the new heavens and earth come back together as one, when are you coming? I don't know. Well, I've entrusted it into the Father's hands. I'll come when he tells me. We have to live in trust. And I don't know about you, there's been many occasions in my life where I'm glad I didn't know. If God had told me what was coming in the months ahead, I would have walked in the complete opposite direction. Because I would have said, I can't. I'm not strong enough. I'm not strong enough in my faith. I don't think I could persevere through that hardship. I don't think I could walk down that narrow path. But I didn't know. But as you walk down the path, Jesus is walking down that path with us every step of the way. And so we know when we need to know. All along, Jesus knew that Judas didn't love him. Can you imagine that? Waking up in the morning, having breakfast with somebody. This is somebody who would have contributed. He was at every prayer meeting. He contributed at every Bible study. He was feeding the poor. He was tending to the sick. He was serving in church with great responsibility. Nobody suspected at all that time and intimacy they had together. None of the disciples knew except Jesus, and he knew. He knew. Those words that would come out of his mouth, those words of praise to God and encouragement to Jesus, it was all a bunch of lies. Imagine how painful that was. His good works were there for the world to see. And that betrayal that Jesus knew was coming, that hurt him. That troubled Jesus, as the Bible tells us. He was troubled. These passages are absolutely petrifying for all of us pastors. I'm just telling you that. They should be petrifying for all of us Christians. Because these are the things that we want to see. People coming to prayer meetings and church and praising God and contributing in Bible studies and encouraging each other and helping the poor and doing good works. That's what we want to see, isn't it? But we're also conscious of what Jude, verse 4, tells us. Certain people have crept in unnoticed, who long ago were designated for this condemnation. Ungodly people who pervert the grace of our God into sensuality and deny our only Master and Lord, Jesus Christ. Jude says there's people that have crept in like a worm, gets inside a bit of fruit, and on the outside the skin of the fruit looks brilliant, looks lovely, really appealing, tasty. But only when you bite in you realise that bit of fruit is rotten to the core. Because a worm has got inside and ate away at so much of the good. Jude says you need to watch out for these people. You need to be aware of these people. They've crept in. Judas took the bread from Jesus without hesitation. So to do that, it was a sign of affection and affiliation with somebody. So if you offer the bread, it's great, not just a great hospitality gesture, but you affirm that person. To accept that was a great sign of love and affection. Judas took it. Like he said, yeah, wash my feet. No problem with that. He's happy to be served by God, happy to receive from God. But what was he willing to give? Because he gave his time, he gave his praise, he was willing to have fellowship. But would he give God his heart? Would he give God his love? His life? No. Judas said no. He walked away from true love. And the interesting thing, verse 25 and 26 tell us, is only John was aware of this. So the Apostle John is the one whom Jesus loved. So John is sat next to Jesus, and Simon Peter's like giving John a nudge and saying, hey, find out who it is. I haven't got a clue. So John asks Jesus, and Jesus says to John, it's the one who I'm going to dip the morsel of bread and I'm going to give it to. That's who it is that's going to betray me. And he does that and he gives it to Judas. So John knows that Judas is the betrayer. No one else knows. When did John tell the others? Sometimes God reveals things to just one person amongst his people. And that person has a great weight of responsibility. And often they have to discern, when is the right time? When do I share this with the pastor? When do I share this with the person who's involved in this? I'm pretty sure God has revealed this to me. He's made me aware of this situation. This is not good. When's the right time? Really, really difficult. Discernment comes into it so much. But before we start casting our beady eyes on each other, thinking, you were a betrayer, because you were there at the prayer meeting. You were there. You've been here in church every week. You look after the money, Mark. Whoa. We have to remember that God knows. He's not surprised. He's not panicking, so we shouldn't be either. He's in control. And he allowed this situation to happen with Judas. Now, if John's Gospel had been just like a normal book, then There's no way John would have known. And there's no way this would have been revealed throughout the book. It would have been kept to the end. This would have been the twist in the story, the exciting twist. And one of his closest friends betrayed the hero of the story, and he ended up dying. What a shame. But there's the twist. No one's seen it coming. But Jesus did see it coming. John knew it was coming. So the reader of God's book, the Bible, has known since back in chapter 6. So if we turn back to chapter 6 of John's Gospel, verse 64. But there are some of you who do not believe. For Jesus knew from the beginning who those were who did not believe and who it was who would betray him. Jesus knew. Verse 70. Jesus answered them, "Did I not choose you, the 12, and yet one of you is a devil?" He spoke of Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, for he, one of the 12, was going to betray him. So in chapter 12, verse 4. But Judas Iscariot, one of his disciples, he who was about to betray him, said, "Why was this ointment not sold for 300 denarii and given to the poor?" He said this not because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief. And having charge of the money bag, he used to help himself to what was put in it. Then we get to chapter 13, verse 2. During supper, when the devil had already put it into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him, etc., etc. There's no spoiler alert. Jesus knew all along. He knew. And he told John what would happen on this night, who the betrayer was, before it even took place. So then, as this treachery unfolds, despite the disappointment, despite the pain and the shock maybe of a lot of the people, the surprise, their own friend, they could rest in the knowledge that Jesus saw it coming. He expected it. He was prepared for it. Scripture had foretold it 1,000 years before. Jesus quotes Psalm 41, written 1,000 years before by King David. And King David says, "Even my close friend in whom I trusted, who ate my bread, has lifted his heel against me." There's this kind of image of a horse about to kick. The horse has lifted his heel and it's about to kick someone in the head. Horrible act of treachery. But King David's struggles 1,000 years before were just a shadow and a picture of what the King of Kings would suffer in his betrayal. But it's interesting what comes just before verse 9 in Psalm 41. "My enemies say of me in malice, when will he die and his name perish? And when one comes to see me, he utters empty words while his heart gathers iniquity. When he goes out, he tells it abroad. All who hate me whisper together about me. They imagine the worst for me. They say a deadly thing is poured out on him. He will not rise again from where he lies." As Jesus is here in this room with his disciples, all the plans of treachery are going on outside those walls. The enemies are closing in. They want Jesus dead, and anyone who associates with him dead. And Judas has decided to leave those walls and join with those enemies. Actually, he's been with them the whole time. Maybe not in person, but certainly in heart and spirit. A deadly thing was poured out on Jesus, not just the betrayal, not just the crucifixion, but also the wrath of God. But they got one thing wrong. They said, "He will not rise again from where he lies." David rose again, and the greater David, the Lord Jesus, he rose again too. And he wasn't just ill, he was dead. He truly is the I am of Exodus 3. And I just want to finish with that last 4 words of this section, verse 30, and it was night. Is that just a detail that we know? Oh, it was night? No. This is one of the great themes, isn't it, in John's Gospel? The light and the darkness, the day and the night. Judas has fully entered the darkness. All those opportunities he could have had to turn to the light of the world. And yet at this point now it's over. It's too late now. It's almost like the devil was there probing him and prompting him and influencing him because he belonged to the devil at that point. He could have turned to Jesus and put his trust in him and started being a genuine disciple and follower. But at this point, when the devil enters him, the devil possesses him in every sense at this point. It's too late, the door's shut. It's over for Judas. This is quite scary. As soon as Judas took the bread, Satan entered into him. So Jesus told him, what you're about to do quickly. Judas is just a puppet now. The puppet master who's pulling the strings, the greater power behind him. He's the one in control of his life now. And Jesus says, get out. You've made your choice, out. I don't think he's just talking to Judas here. I think he's talking to the devil too. Get out. Because Jesus is in control even of the devil. He's right. That's the unbeliever's act. I'm going to focus on you 11 now. I need to prepare you for what's coming. I'm prepared. I'm troubled, but I'm prepared. I'm ready. But you need to be ready as well. So what we need to remember, despite this treachery and deceit and betrayal, is Jesus wasn't dragged to the cross. He marched there. He went there willingly, in complete control, to die for you. Pay the price for your sin, and to rise in great victory on the third day. So we can say, where death is your victory, where is your sin? We can say that with confidence. Anyone who follows me will never walk in the darkness, but have the light of life. Let's pray. Lord, we do get troubled when we think that there could potentially be people close to us who don't genuinely love you, who are acting like Judas. But Lord, help us to rest in the knowledge that you are in complete control of everything. And even if that is the case, it's not going to hinder, it's only going to strengthen our faith. Lord, those disciples received a valuable lesson. Despite any outward appearances, it's all about what's going on inside. And Lord, we would ask for your protection against us falling in love with things other than people, other than you. May you always be our first and greatest love, Lord. We know that money wasn't the problem for Judas, it was his love for that money. And Lord, we don't want to love anything more than we love you. Because we know that the devil is trying to loosen our grip on you and take our gaze away from you. But Lord, we just thank you so much that once we belong to you, we will always belong to you. We'll always be safe. And even though we'll have moments of backsliding or doubt, stumble and fall, Lord, you will continue to pick us up. Get us back on our feet and walking in the right direction again. Thank you for that reassurance, Lord. Thank you for your sovereign power. We love you and we praise you this day. Help us as we sing to you now. We ask it all in Jesus' precious name. Amen.
Amen.
We finished with this glorious hymn, Guide Me, O Thou Great Redeemer. Let's stand for the next.
This
in church all over the world today who hasn't yet truly loved you. Yet they've been coming to church for many, many months or years. I pray, Lord, that today they would truly become a follower of Jesus.
Amen.
I pray, Father, that you would draw them to yourself, that you would seal them by your Spirit, and that they would be safe in the mighty hands of Jesus. Lord, we pray this for your glory's sake. Amen.
Amen.